It was January 5th, 2026 at 2:47 a.m. when a restlessness I couldn't explain, a burning in my chest that felt like holy fire and desperate hunger combined, drove me to a rocky outcrop in the mountain wilderness 3 miles from where I was staying. And there, surrounded by jagged granite formations that rose like ancient sentinels against a sky so thick with stars, it looked like God had shattered diamonds across black velvet. Jesus appeared before me with tears streaming down his face and said something that shattered everything I thought I understood about what's coming. Jonathan, they think they know me, but they're worshiping a version of me I never was, and time is shorter than anyone realizes. Not everyone who sees this message is meant to see it. Some will scroll past, some will ignore it, but you've been marked. You've been chosen to hear this. And what I'm about to share with you over these next few minutes will either transform your life completely or offend you so deeply you'll never watch this channel again. Before I go any further, I need you to do something. I need you to leave your prayer request in the comments right now. Don't wait until the end of this video. Do it now, because what Jesus showed me last night wasn't just for me, it was for you, specifically for you. And I've been instructed, commanded really, to pray over every single request that comes through this channel. But here's what I need you to understand. I can only pray for those who are truly seeking. So if you're serious, if you're hungry for truth, leave your request below. Be specific. Be vulnerable. Jesus already knows what you need, but there's power in declaring it. And if you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, I need to ask you something. Why not? This isn't about me. This isn't about building some platform or getting views. This is about a community of true believers who are hungry for authentic encounters with Jesus. The algorithm doesn't show these videos to everyone. YouTube actually suppresses content like this, content that challenges the comfortable, watered-down version of Christianity that's become so popular. So when you subscribe and hit that notification bell, you're telling the algorithm, I want truth, not entertainment. You're joining a remnant, a marked generation. Some of you know me from The Chosen. You've watched me portray Jesus for 7 seasons now. And I want to be clear about something. I'm not Jesus. I'm just an actor. A broken man who's been given the extraordinary privilege of stepping into that role. But what happened to me last night had nothing to do with the show. Nothing to do with scripts or cameras or production schedules. What happened to me last night was as real as the cold mountain air that's still lingering in my lungs, as real as the cuts on my hands from climbing up those rocks in the darkness, as real as the tears that wouldn't stop falling for 3 hours straight. Let me take you back to how this started. I couldn't sleep. I'd been tossing and turning since about 10 p.m., and there was this pressure building in my spirit, like something was trying to break through, trying to get my attention. I kept hearing this whisper, go outside, go to the high place, I need to show you something. At first I tried to ignore it. It was the middle of the night, it was cold, I was tired, but the whisper became louder, more insistent, until finally at 2:30 a.m. I threw off my covers, got dressed, grabbed a flashlight, and started hiking. The trail up to that rocky outcrop isn't easy even in daylight. At night, with only a flashlight beam cutting through the darkness, it was treacherous. Loose stones shifted under my feet. Branches I couldn't see scraped across my face. My breath came out in visible clouds, and the temperature had to be in the low 30s. But I kept climbing because someone, was pulling me upward. When I finally reached the outcrop, I turned off my flashlight. I need you to understand what I saw. This wasn't some vague, mystical experience. This was vivid, tangible. The stars above me were so bright, so impossibly numerous, that the Milky Way looked like a river of light flowing across the heavens. The mountains stretched out in every direction, their silhouettes dark against the star glow. The wind was sharp and cold, carrying the scent of pine and stone and something else, something clean and ancient that I can't quite describe. And the silence. The silence was so profound it felt like the earth itself was holding its breath. I stood there on that rocky ledge, my hands shaking, partly from cold, partly from anticipation, and I did something I've done 1,000 times while preparing for The Chosen. I started to pray, but this time I wasn't preparing for a scene. I wasn't trying to understand a character. I was just desperate. Jesus, I whispered into that vast darkness. I'm here. I don't know why, but I'm here. Show me what you need me to see. And then he was there. I can't explain how I knew. There was no flash of light, no thunder, no dramatic special effects like you'd see in a movie. But suddenly I wasn't alone anymore. The air changed. The temperature shifted. Not warmer exactly, but different. Charged. and I could feel his presence as clearly as I could feel the stone beneath my feet. When I turned, he was standing about 10 feet away from me, and the first thing I noticed was his face. He was weeping, not quiet tears, not gentle sadness. He was weeping the way you weep when your heart is being torn apart. His shoulders shook, his hands were clenched at his sides, and his eyes, when they met mine, held such a mixture of love and grief and frustration that I actually stepped backward, nearly losing my footing on the rocks. "Jonathan," he said, and his voice was like nothing I can adequately describe. It was gentle and thunderous at the same time. It resonated not just in my ears, but in my chest, in my bones. "Do you know why I'm crying?" I couldn't speak. I literally couldn't form words. I just shook my head. "I'm crying because they've made me safe," he said. "They've made me comfortable. They've turned me into a cosmic vending machine who exists to make their lives easier, to bless their plans, to rubber stamp their decisions. They sing songs about my love, but they've forgotten my holiness. They talk about my grace, but they've forgotten my justice. They want a Jesus who affirms everything they do, who never challenges them, who never demands anything difficult." He took a step closer to me, and I could see his face more clearly now. This wasn't the gentle, soft-focused Jesus from religious paintings. This was the Jesus who overturned tables in the temple, the Jesus who called the Pharisees whitewashed tombs, the Jesus whose eyes blazed with holy fire. "They think they know me," he continued, "but they're worshiping an idol they've created in their own image, a Jesus who thinks like they think, who prioritizes what they prioritize, who's angry about what makes them angry and silent about what makes them uncomfortable." The wind picked up suddenly, whipping around us, and I had to brace myself against it. The stars above seemed to pulse with light, and I realized I was trembling, not from cold anymore, but from the weight of what I was hearing. "Lord," I managed to say, my voice cracking, "what do you want me to do?" He looked at me for a long moment, and then he did something that broke me completely. He reached out and put his hand on my shoulder, and the moment he touched me, I felt everything. I felt his grief over a church that had domesticated him. I felt his frustration with believers who wanted blessing without obedience, intimacy without surrender, heaven without holiness. I felt his burning love for people who were settling for so much less than what he died to give them. "I want you to tell them the truth," he said. "I want you to tell them that I'm not who they think I am. I'm not safe. I'm not tame. I'm not here to make their comfortable lives more comfortable. I came to set the world on fire, and that fire is meant to burn away everything that isn't of me, even in the lives of those who call themselves mine." Then he turned and gestured toward the vast expanse of mountains and sky around us. "Look," he said, and suddenly I was seeing something else. The mountains were still there, the stars were still there, but overlaid on top of the physical landscape was something else, a vision, clear as day despite the darkness. I saw churches, thousands of them, millions of them, scattered across the landscape like lights. But as I watched, I realized that many of those lights were dim, flickering, and some were going out entirely. "Do you see?" Jesus asked, his voice heavy with sorrow. "Do you see what's happening?" I saw people in those churches, good people, sincere people, going through the motions, singing the songs, saying the prayers, posting the Bible verses on social media, but their hearts were far from him. They'd learned the language of faith without the reality of it. They'd mastered the appearance of devotion without the substance. "They think they're mine because they believe the right doctrines," Jesus said. "They think they're mine because they attend the right churches, listen to the right podcasts, read the right books. But I never knew them, not really, because knowing me requires more than intellectual agreement. It requires surrender, death to self, a willingness to let me be Lord, not just Savior." The vision shifted, and I saw something that made my stomach turn. I saw people, Christians, believers, people who would identify themselves as followers of Jesus, living lives that were virtually indistinguishable from the world around them. Same priorities, same values, same entertainment, same use of money, same treatment of others. The only difference was that they went to church on Sunday and had Christian bumper stickers on their cars. "This is what breaks my heart," Jesus said, and his voice cracked with emotion. "They've taken my name, but they haven't taken my nature. They want my benefits without my character. They want my promises without my presence. They want heaven without holiness." I was crying now, tears streaming down my face, because I realized he wasn't just talking about other people. He was talking about me. How many times had I done exactly that? How many times had I treated Jesus like a good luck charm, a divine life coach, a cosmic therapist, instead of the King of Kings and Lord of Lords who deserves my complete surrender? Jonathan, he said, turning back to me, I'm going to show you more. Over the next 3 nights, I'm going to reveal to you what's really happening in my church, what's coming, and what I'm calling my true followers to do. But I need you to promise me something. Anything, I whispered. You have to share it, all of it, even the parts that will make people angry, even the parts that will cost you followers, cost you opportunities, cost you comfort, because time is running out and I need voices who will speak truth without compromise. The wind died down suddenly and the silence rushed back in. Jesus was still there, still looking at me with those eyes that saw everything, every failure, every compromise, every half-hearted prayer, and yet still loved me with an intensity that was almost painful. Will you do this? He asked. Yes, I said. Yes, Lord, I'll do it. He nodded slowly, and then he said something that I need you to hear, because it's not just for me, it's for you. Not everyone will receive this message, he said. Many will reject it because it challenges the comfortable faith they've built, but there's a remnant, a marked generation, who are hungry for truth, who are tired of the shallow, entertainment-driven, self-help version of Christianity that's become so popular. Those are the ones I'm calling. Those are the ones who will hear my voice in your words. He started to fade then, not all at once, but gradually, like morning mist burning off in sunlight. But his final words hung in the air, echoing in my spirit. Tomorrow night, same place. I have more to show you. And then I was alone again on that rocky outcrop, with the stars blazing overhead and the mountains stretching endlessly in every direction. But I wasn't the same person who had climbed up there an hour before. Something had shifted in me. Something had broken open. I stayed there until the first hints of dawn started to lighten the eastern sky, just sitting on those cold rocks, processing what had happened. My mind was racing, my heart was pounding, and I knew with absolute certainty that I had to share this, no matter what it cost me. So here's what I need you to do right now. First, if you haven't already, leave your prayer request in the comments. Be specific, be honest. Tell Jesus what you really need, not what you think you're supposed to say. Second, subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, because what I'm going to share over the next few videos will build on each other, and you need to see all of it. Third, and this is important, I need you to examine your own heart right now. Are you worshiping the real Jesus or a version of Jesus you've created to make yourself comfortable? Are you truly surrendered to him, or are you just using him to bless your own plans and purposes? Because here's what Jesus made clear to me last night. Time is running out. Whatever is coming, and he's going to show me more about that tomorrow night. It's closer than we think. And when it arrives, the comfortable, casual, cultural Christianity that's become so prevalent won't survive. Only those who truly know him, who have built their lives on the rock of genuine surrender and obedience, will stand. Tomorrow night, I'm going back to that outcrop. Jesus told me he has more to show me, and I have a feeling it's going to be even more challenging than what I saw last night. I'll be sharing that with you as soon as I can process it. But for now, I want you to sit with this question. If Jesus appeared to you tonight, if he looked you in the eyes and asked, "Do you really know me?" what would your honest answer be? Leave your thoughts in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video, where I'll share what Jesus revealed to me on the second night. I barely slept after that first encounter. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face, those eyes filled with tears, that expression of mingled love and grief that had shaken me to my core. I spent most of January 6th in a daze, going through the motions of normal life while my mind kept returning to that rocky outcrop, to those words that had cut through every comfortable assumption I'd ever held about faith. By the time evening came, I was already preparing to go back. I didn't need the whisper this time, didn't need the supernatural pull. I knew where I was supposed to be. But as I gathered my things, warmer clothes this time, a thermos of coffee, a better flashlight, I felt something different than the night before. The first night had been anticipation mixed with curiosity. This night was different. This night I felt dread, not the kind of dread that makes you want to run away, the kind that comes when you know you're about to see something that will change you forever and there's no going back. I started the hike at 11:47 p.m., The trail was slightly easier this time because I knew where I was going, but the darkness felt heavier somehow, more oppressive. The temperature had dropped even further. I could see my breath in thick clouds with every exhale, and the cold bit through my layers of clothing. Above me, the stars were partially obscured by high, thin clouds that gave the night an eerie, filtered quality. When I reached the outcrop at 12:23 a.m., I didn't turn off my flashlight right away. I stood there at the edge, looking out over the vast expanse of wilderness, and I prayed, not eloquent words, just honest ones. Jesus, I'm scared. I'm scared of what you're going to show me. I'm scared of what it's going to cost me to share it, but I'm here. I'm listening. Show me what I need to see. The moment I finished speaking, a gust of wind hit me so hard I actually staggered backward. It wasn't a natural wind. It was too focused, too purposeful, and with it came a scent I hadn't noticed the night before, something like incense and lightning and fresh rain all mixed together. The clouds above began to move, swirling in patterns that defied normal meteorology, and through the breaks in the clouds the stars shone with an intensity that was almost painful to look at. He was there before I even turned around. I could feel him. You came back, Jesus said, and there was something in his voice, approval mixed with sadness, as if he knew how much harder this night was going to be. I turned to face him, and this time he wasn't weeping. His face was set with determination, with holy resolve, and somehow that was even more frightening than the tears had been. Jonathan, he said, last night I showed you the problem. Tonight I'm going to show you the cost, the real cost of what's been lost. He walked to the edge of the outcrop, and I followed him. We stood there together, looking out over the mountains, and once again the vision began to overlay reality. But this time what I saw made me want to fall to my knees. I saw lives, thousands of them, millions of them, individual people, each one precious, each one created in the image of God, and I saw how they were being affected by the watered-down, compromised version of Christianity that had become so prevalent. Do you see that woman? Jesus asked, pointing to a specific figure in the vision. I could see her clearly, a young mother, maybe in her 30s, sitting in a church service. She was singing along with the worship songs, her hands raised, tears on her face. She looked like the picture of devotion. She's sincere, Jesus said. She really does love me, or at least she loves the version of me she's been taught about. But watch. The vision fast-forwarded, and I saw the same woman throughout her week. I saw her consuming the same entertainment as everyone else, shows filled with casual sex, violence, mockery of faith. I saw her scrolling through social media, her mind being shaped by the same worldly values as her unbelieving friends. I saw her making decisions about money, about relationships, about her children, and in none of those decisions did she actually stop to ask what Jesus, wanted. She thinks she's mine, Jesus said, and his voice was heavy with sorrow, because she goes to church and believes I died for her sins, and I did die for her sins. But she's never understood that I didn't just die to forgive her, I died to transform her, to make her new, to give her a completely different nature, different desires, different priorities. Instead, she's been taught that faith is just about believing the right things and being a generally good person. No one ever told her that following me means dying to herself daily, that it means being so radically different from the world that people notice, that it costs everything. The vision shifted to show me the consequences of this shallow faith. I saw the woman's children growing up with a form of Christianity that had no power, no reality, no transformative effect on their lives. I saw them eventually walking away from faith entirely because what they'd been shown wasn't compelling enough to compete with what the world offered. I saw generations being lost because the gospel had been reduced to a self-help message with Jesus as a supporting character in people's own stories. This is happening everywhere, Jesus said, and he swept his arm across the landscape. The vision expanded, and I saw it playing out in countless lives, countless churches, countless families. People who genuinely believed they were Christians, who would be shocked and offended if you suggested otherwise, but whose lives bore no resemblance to the radical, sold-out, everything-on-the-altar faith that Jesus actually called people to. But Lord, I said, my voice shaking, these are good people. They're not out there committing terrible sins. They're not denying you. They're just living normal lives. He turned to look at me, and the intensity in his eyes made me take a step back. Normal, he said. Jonathan, I didn't die so people could live normal lives. I died so they could live supernatural lives. I died so they could be filled with my spirit, empowered to do greater works than I did, transformed into my image from glory to glory. Normal is what they were before they met me. Normal is what I came to rescue them from. The wind picked up again, colder now, and I pulled my jacket tighter around me. But the cold I felt wasn't just physical, it was spiritual, a deep chill that came from understanding how far the church had drifted from what Jesus intended. "Let me show you something else," he said. The vision changed again, and this time I saw pastors, leaders, teachers, people in positions of influence within the church. And what I saw made my heart sink. I saw men and women who had started out with genuine calls from God, genuine passion for his kingdom. But over time, I watched as they became more concerned with building their platforms than building his church. I saw them crafting messages designed to attract crowds rather than make disciples. I saw them avoiding difficult truths because those truths might offend people, might cause people to leave, might affect the budget. They've become CEOs instead of shepherds, Jesus said, and there was anger in his voice now, not the petty anger of wounded pride, but the righteous anger of a king whose kingdom was being misrepresented. They measure success by attendance numbers and social media followers instead of transformed lives. They've turned my church into a business, my gospel into a product, and me into a brand. I saw specific examples that made me sick to my stomach. I saw pastors who knew their congregations were living in sin, but refused to address it because they didn't want to seem judgmental. I saw worship leaders who were living double lives, leading people in worship on Sunday while engaging in secret sins the rest of the week. I saw church boards making decisions based on financial considerations rather than spiritual ones. But the worst part, Jesus said, and his voice dropped to almost a whisper, is that many of them have convinced themselves they're doing the right thing. They've told themselves that being seeker-friendly is the same as being loving, that avoiding hard truths is the same as being gracious, that building big churches is the same as building my kingdom. He turned away from the vision and looked directly at me. "Jonathan, do you understand what I'm showing you? Do you understand why I'm weeping?" I nodded, tears streaming down my face now. "Because we've lost the gospel. We've kept the language, kept the rituals, kept the buildings and the programs, but we've lost the reality of what it means to follow you." "Yes," he said, "and the consequences are going to be devastating." The vision shifted one more time, and what I saw next was the hardest thing of all. I saw Judgment Day. I saw people standing before the throne of God, people who had considered themselves Christians their entire lives, people who had gone to church, who had prayed prayers, who had believed in Jesus, and I heard Jesus say to them the words from Matthew 7, "I never knew you. Depart from me." The shock on their faces was unbearable to witness, the confusion, the protest. "But Lord, we prophesied in your name, we cast out demons in your name, we did many mighty works in your name." And Jesus, with tears streaming down his face, responded, "I never knew you. You knew about me, but you never knew me. You used my name, but you never surrendered to my lordship. You wanted my benefits without my presence, my promises without my character, my heaven without my holiness." I watched as these people, good people, moral people, religious people, were turned away. And the grief on Jesus' face was so profound that I couldn't bear to look at it. "This is what's coming," he said to me, his voice breaking. "This is what's going to happen to so many who think they're safe, who think they're saved, who think that because they prayed a prayer once, or go to church regularly, or believe the right doctrines, they're guaranteed entrance into my kingdom. But I told them clearly, not everyone who says to me, 'Lord, Lord,' will enter the kingdom of heaven, but the one who does the will of my Father, who is in heaven." The vision faded, and we were back on the rocky outcrop, with the cold wind whipping around us and the stars blazing overhead through the breaks in the clouds. I was on my knees now, sobbing, because the weight of what I'd seen was crushing. "Lord," I managed to say through my tears, "what do we do? How do we fix this?" He knelt down beside me, and once again he put his hand on my shoulder. The touch was gentle but firm, comforting but also challenging. "You can't fix it," he said. "Only I can fix it. But I work through willing vessels, through people who are brave enough to speak truth even when it's unpopular, through people who are willing to call my church back to real faith, real surrender, real transformation." He helped me to my feet, and we stood there together, looking out over the vast wilderness. The clouds were beginning to break up now, and more stars were visible, thousands upon thousands of them, a reminder of God's infinite power and glory. "Jonathan, I need you to understand something," Jesus said. "What I'm showing you isn't meant to bring despair, it's meant to bring awakening. Yes, there are many who have settled for a false version of faith, but there's also a remnant, a marked generation, who are hungry for the real thing, who are tired of the shallow, entertainment-driven, self-help Christianity that's become so popular, who want to know me, really know me, no matter what it costs. He turned to face me fully, and his eyes were blazing now with holy fire. Those are the ones I'm calling. Those are the ones who will hear my voice through your words. And when they respond, when they truly surrender everything to me, they're going to turn the world upside down. They're going to be the generation that brings revival, that demonstrates what authentic Christianity actually looks like, that shows the world a Jesus who is powerful and holy and transformative, not the domesticated, safe, comfortable Jesus that's been preached for too long. The wind died down suddenly, and in the stillness, I could hear my own heartbeat, rapid and strong. Tomorrow night, Jesus said, I'm going to show you what's coming. I'm going to show you both the judgment that's approaching and the glory that's available to those who truly follow me. I'm going to show you what I'm calling my remnant to do and what will happen if they respond. He started to fade again, but before he disappeared completely, he said one more thing. Tell them, Jonathan. Tell them that I love them too much to leave them comfortable in their compromise. Tell them that I'm calling them higher, deeper, further into true faith. Tell them that time is running out, but it's not too late. Not yet. And then he was gone, and I was alone again on that rocky outcrop with the stars blazing overhead and the mountains stretching endlessly in every direction. I stayed there for hours, just processing what I'd seen. The vision of that Judgment Day scene kept replaying in my mind, those shocked faces, those protests, that devastating phrase, I never knew you. And I kept thinking about all the people I know, all the people watching this video right now, who might be in that category, who think they're saved because they believe the right things or go to the right church, but who have never actually surrendered their lives completely to Jesus. Here's what I need you to hear. Jesus isn't trying to scare you. He's trying to save you. He's trying to wake you up before it's too late. So I need you to do something right now. I need you to get brutally honest with yourself. Not with me. I don't matter. Not with your pastor or your small group or your Christian friends. With yourself and with God. Ask yourself these questions. Has following Jesus actually transformed your life? Or have you just added some religious activities to an otherwise worldly lifestyle? Do you make decisions based on what Jesus wants, or do you make decisions based on what you want, and then ask Jesus to bless them? Is your faith costing you anything, or is it just making your comfortable life slightly more comfortable? Are you being conformed to the image of Christ, or are you just a slightly nicer version of who you've always been? Would your life look any different if you weren't a Christian? These are hard questions. They're meant to be, because Jesus made it clear. Following him isn't about adding him to your life. It's about giving him your life, all of it. No reservations, no conditions, no areas marked off limits. Leave your honest answers in the comments. Tell me where you're really at, because here's what Jesus showed me. He's not looking for perfect people. He's looking for surrendered people. He's not looking for people who have it all together. He's looking for people who are willing to let him tear apart everything that isn't of him and rebuild them from the ground up. And if you're watching this and you're feeling convicted, feeling uncomfortable, feeling like maybe you've been settling for a shallow version of faith, good. That's the Holy Spirit working in you. Don't ignore it. Don't push it away. Don't wait until tomorrow to respond. Tomorrow night, I'm going back to that outcrop one more time. Jesus told me he's going to show me what's coming, both the judgment and the glory, and I have a feeling it's going to be the most intense encounter yet. But for tonight, I want you to sit with what I've shared. I want you to really examine your heart, and I want you to make a decision. Are you going to continue with comfortable cultural Christianity, or are you going to pursue the real thing no matter what it costs? Leave your prayer requests in the comments. Tell me where you're struggling. Tell me what you need Jesus to do in your life. And subscribe if you haven't already, because what I'm going to share tomorrow night is going to build on everything I've shared so far. Time is running out. Jesus made that clear, but it's not too late. Not yet. I'll see you in the next video. January 7th, 2026. I woke up at dawn after maybe 2 hours of fitful sleep, and I knew immediately that this third night was going to be different. There was an electricity in the air, a tension that I could feel in my bones. All day long, I felt like I was standing on the edge of something massive, something that would either break me or remake me completely. I tried to go about my normal routine, but everything felt surreal, like I was moving through water. I couldn't eat, could barely drink. Every time I tried to focus on something else, my mind would drift back to that rocky outcrop, to those visions, to Jesus's words. Tomorrow night, I'm going to show you what's coming. What was coming? Judgment, revival, both? By the time evening arrived, I was already dressed and ready to go, but this time I felt led to do something different. I felt led to fast, to go up that mountain with nothing but water, completely empty, completely dependent on whatever Jesus wanted to show me. I started the hike at 1:15 a.m. on January 8th, technically, though in my mind it was still the third night. The weather had changed dramatically. A storm system was moving in from the west, and the wind was already picking up, gusting hard enough to make the trees creak and groan. The temperature had risen slightly. It was probably in the low 40s, but the humidity made it feel colder somehow, more penetrating. The clouds were thick and low, moving fast across the sky, occasionally breaking apart to reveal glimpses of stars before closing up again. There was a charge in the air that made the hair on my arms stand up, and I could smell rain coming, that distinctive scent of ozone and wet earth. The hike up was harder this time. The wind fought me with every step, and twice I nearly lost my footing on loose rocks. My flashlight beam seemed weaker somehow, swallowed up by the darkness that pressed in from all sides. But I kept climbing, driven by something deeper than determination, a holy compulsion that wouldn't let me turn back. When I finally reached the outcrop at 2:03 a.m., the wind was howling. It whipped around the rocks with a sound like voices, like the earth itself was crying out. The clouds above were churning, moving in patterns that seemed almost alive, and through the breaks I could see stars that seemed to pulse with light, as if they were breathing. I walked to the edge of the outcrop, to the same spot where I'd stood the previous 2 nights, and I didn't even have time to pray before he was there. But this time was different. This time Jesus appeared in a way that made me fall to my face on the cold stone. There was a radiance around him, a glory that was almost unbearable to look at. His eyes blazed like fire, and his voice, when he spoke, resonated not just in my ears but in my chest, in my bones, in the very rocks beneath me. "Stand up, Jonathan," he said, and the authority in his voice left no room for hesitation. I struggled to my feet, trembling, and forced myself to look at him. This wasn't the weeping Jesus of the first night, or even the sorrowful Jesus of the second night. This was the Jesus of Revelation, the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, the Alpha and Omega, the one before whom every knee will bow. "Tonight," he said, "I'm going to show you what's coming, not just for the church, but for the world. Not just judgment, but also glory. Not just what will be lost, but what will be gained by those who truly follow me." The wind intensified, and suddenly the clouds above us split apart like a curtain being torn in two. The stars beyond were so bright, so numerous that the entire sky seemed to be on fire with light. And in that light, the vision began. But this vision was different from the others. This one was more intense, more vivid, more real. It was like I was actually there, experiencing it, not just watching it. I saw the earth from above, spinning in space, and I could see spiritual realities overlaid on the physical world. I could see darkness spreading like a stain across nations, across cities, across individual lives. But I could also see light, points of brilliant, blazing light scattered across the darkness like stars. "Do you see?" Jesus asked, his voice cutting through the howling wind. "Do you see what's happening?" I saw the darkness growing, spreading, becoming more bold and more blatant. I saw evil that had once hidden in shadows now parading openly in the streets. I saw lies being called truth and truth being called lies. I saw confusion and chaos and corruption spreading like a plague. But I also saw the lights growing brighter. I saw individuals, ordinary people, not famous preachers or influential leaders, just ordinary believers, beginning to burn with holy fire. I saw them refusing to compromise, refusing to be silent, refusing to blend in with the darkness around them. "This is the separation," Jesus said. "This is what I meant when I said I came to bring not peace, but a sword. The time of comfortable cultural Christianity is ending. What's coming will force everyone to choose. Will they truly follow me, or will they follow the world? There will be no middle ground." The vision zoomed in, and I saw specific scenes that made my heart race. I saw churches splitting, not over minor theological differences, but over fundamental questions. Would they preach the full gospel or a watered-down version? Would they call sin what it is or redefine it to be more palatable? Would they stand on the authority of Scripture or bend to cultural pressure? I saw some churches choosing compromise, choosing relevance over truth, choosing crowds over conviction. And I watched as the glory of God, the actual presence of God, lifted from those places, leaving them as nothing more than social clubs with religious language. But I also saw other churches, often smaller, often less impressive by worldly standards, where the presence of God was so thick, so powerful that people were being genuinely transformed. I saw salvations that were real, not just emotional responses to manipulative altar calls. I saw people being delivered from addictions, healed from diseases, set free from demonic oppression. I saw the book of Acts playing out in real time. "This is what I'm doing," Jesus said, and there was fierce joy in his voice now. "I'm separating the wheat from the chaff. I'm purifying my bride. I'm raising up a remnant who will demonstrate what authentic Christianity actually looks like." The vision shifted, and I saw persecution coming. Not the mild social discomfort that Western Christians sometimes call persecution, but real persecution. I saw believers losing jobs for refusing to compromise their convictions. I saw families being torn apart over faith. I saw legal systems being weaponized against those who stood for biblical truth. And I saw something that shocked me. I saw many who had called themselves Christians for years falling away when the cost became real. When following Jesus meant actual sacrifice, actual suffering, actual loss, they chose comfort instead. They chose security instead. They chose the approval of the world instead. "Not everyone who calls me Lord actually means it," Jesus said, and his voice was heavy with sorrow again. "When the storm comes, only those who have built their lives on the rock of genuine surrender will stand. Those who have built on the sand of cultural Christianity will fall, and great will be their fall." I watched as the storm intensified in the vision, not a literal storm, but a spiritual one, a shaking that affected every institution, every system, every structure. And I saw that this shaking was intentional. It was God's doing. "I'm shaking everything that can be shaken," Jesus said, "so that only what cannot be shaken will remain. I'm exposing what's false so that what's true can shine clearly." This is mercy, Jonathan. It's painful mercy, but it's mercy nonetheless, because I love people too much to let them continue in deception. The vision zoomed in again, and I saw individuals going through this shaking. I saw a businessman who had been a faithful church attender for decades suddenly facing a choice: compromise his integrity to save his company, or stand on biblical principles and lose everything. I watched as he chose integrity, lost his business, lost his reputation, lost his comfortable lifestyle, and found Jesus in a way he never had before. The loss stripped away everything that wasn't real, and what remained was genuine faith, tested and proven. I saw a young woman who had grown up in church, who knew all the right answers, who had a popular Christian social media presence. But when her beliefs became unpopular, when standing for truth meant losing followers and facing mockery, she had to choose. Would she compromise to maintain her platform, or would she speak truth and lose everything she'd built? I watched as she chose truth, lost her platform, lost her influence, and gained intimacy with Jesus that she'd never known was possible. "This is what I'm doing," Jesus said. "I'm bringing my people into the wilderness, stripping away everything they've relied on besides me, so they can learn what it means to truly depend on me. It's painful, but it's necessary, because what's coming requires a people who know me, who trust me, who will follow me no matter what it costs." The vision expanded again, and I saw what was coming for those who responded to this call. I saw a generation of believers who moved in power that the early church would have recognized. I saw healings and miracles and deliverances that couldn't be explained away or dismissed. I saw people being saved, not because of clever marketing or emotional manipulation, but because they encountered the actual presence of God through his people. I saw small gatherings, sometimes in homes, sometimes in hidden places, where the presence of God was so strong that people were being transformed just by walking into the room. I saw believers who had been through the fire, who had lost everything the world values, but who carried a glory and an authority that made demons tremble and angels rejoice. "This is the glory," Jesus said, and his voice rang out like a trumpet. "This is what's available to those who will pay the price. This is what I'm offering to my remnant. Not comfort, not ease, not worldly success, but power, authority, intimacy with me, the privilege of partnering with me in the greatest move of my spirit the world has ever seen." Thunder cracked overhead, so loud it made the rocks beneath my feet vibrate. The wind was reaching a fever pitch now, and I had to brace myself to keep from being blown off the outcrop. Rain began to fall, not a gentle rain, but a deluge, cold and hard, soaking through my clothes in seconds. But I didn't care. I couldn't look away from the vision. I saw the end. I saw Jesus returning not as the suffering servant, but as the conquering king. I saw him coming in glory with all his angels to judge the living and the dead, And I saw the separation, the sheep from the goats, the wheat from the chaff, those who truly knew him from those who only knew about him. The scene from the second night replayed, but this time I saw it in fuller context. I saw those who were turned away. I never knew you. And I understood now what Jesus meant. They had never surrendered. They had never died to themselves. They had never let him be Lord. They had wanted his benefits without his lordship, his promises without his presence, his heaven without his holiness. But I also saw those who were welcomed in. Well done, good and faithful servant. Enter into the joy of your Lord. And the joy on their faces, the overwhelming relief and gratitude and worship, it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. These were people who had lost everything for Jesus and found that he was worth infinitely more than everything they'd lost. This is what's at stake, Jesus said, and he turned to look at me directly. The rain was pouring down now, and lightning was flashing across the sky, illuminating his face in stark detail. This is why I'm weeping. This is why I'm calling out to my church, because so many are going to be shocked on that day. So many who thought they were saved, who thought they were mine, are going to hear those devastating words, "I never knew you." He stepped closer to me, and even in the storm, even in the chaos of wind and rain and thunder, his presence was the most real thing I'd ever experienced. "Jonathan, I'm giving you a message to share, not just with those who watch your videos, but with everyone who will listen. Tell them this." And then he spoke words that I need you to hear, words that I've been commanded to share exactly as he gave them to me. The time of playing church is over. The time of comfortable cultural Christianity is ending. What's coming will separate the true from the false, the genuine from the counterfeit, those who truly know me from those who only know about me. And I'm calling, right now in this moment, for those who will respond, for those who will stop settling for shallow faith and pursue the real thing, for those who will surrender everything, hold nothing back, and follow me no matter what it costs. To those who respond, I promise you this: you will lose much. You may lose comfort, security, reputation, relationships, even your life. But you will gain me, and I am worth more than everything you could possibly lose. You will move in power. You will experience intimacy with me that most Christians never dream of. You will be part of the greatest move of my spirit the world has ever seen. And when you stand before me on that final day, you will hear the words every soul longs to hear. "Well done, good and faithful servant. Enter into the joy of your Lord." But to those who refuse, who continue in comfortable compromise, who want my benefits without my lordship, I say this: I love you too much to let you continue in deception. The shaking that's coming is mercy, painful mercy, but mercy nonetheless. It's your last chance to get real with me before it's too late. Don't waste it. Don't ignore it. Don't put it off until tomorrow, because tomorrow may not come. The choice is yours. It's always been yours. But choose quickly, because time is running out. The moment he finished speaking, a bolt of lightning struck somewhere close enough that I felt the electricity in the air, close enough that the thunder was instantaneous and deafening. The rain was coming down in sheets now, and the wind was so strong I had to drop to my knees to keep from being blown off the outcrop. But Jesus remained standing, unmoved by the storm, his eyes still blazing with holy fire. "Tomorrow night," he said, his voice somehow cutting through the chaos, "I'm going to give you specific instructions. I'm going to tell you exactly what I'm calling my remnant to do, and what will happen to those who respond. But tonight, I needed you to see the full picture. I needed you to understand what's at stake." He reached down and put his hand on my head, and the moment he touched me, everything changed. The storm was still raging around us, but I felt a peace that transcended understanding. I felt a strength that wasn't my own. I felt a conviction that nothing could shake. "You're going to face opposition for sharing this message," he said. "People are going to call you extreme, divisive, judgmental. Some will say you're fear-mongering. Others will say you're trying to manipulate people, but you know the truth. You've seen what I've shown you, and you have to speak it, regardless of the cost." "I will," I said, my voice barely audible over the storm. "I promise, Lord. I'll speak it." He smiled then, the first time I'd seen him smile across all 3 nights, and it was like the sun breaking through clouds. "I know you will," he said. "That's why I chose you." And then he was gone, and I was alone in the storm. I stayed there on my knees for a long time, rain pouring over me, wind howling around me, lightning flashing across the sky. But I wasn't afraid. I was overwhelmed, yes, shaken, absolutely, but not afraid, because I had seen the truth. I had seen what was coming, both the judgment and the glory, and I knew I knew with absolute certainty that following Jesus, really following him, was worth any cost. Eventually, I made my way back down the mountain. The storm continued all the way down, and by the time I reached the bottom, I was soaked to the bone, shivering, exhausted, but I was also more alive than I'd ever been. Here's what I need you to understand. Everything Jesus showed me tonight is real. The separation that's coming is real. The shaking is real. The persecution is real. But the glory, the power, the intimacy, the privilege of being part of what God is doing, that's real too. And you have to choose. You can't sit on the fence anymore. You can't play at Christianity while living for yourself. You can't have one foot in the kingdom and one foot in the world. What's coming will force you to choose, so you might as well choose now. If you're watching this and you feel the Holy Spirit convicting you, don't ignore it. Don't push it away. Don't tell yourself you'll deal with it later. Respond now, right now. Get on your knees and tell Jesus that you're done with shallow faith, done with comfortable Christianity, done with playing games. Tell him you want the real thing, no matter what it costs, and then leave your commitment in the comments. Tell everyone watching that you're choosing to follow Jesus for real, because there's power in declaring it publicly. There's accountability in making it known. Tomorrow night, or technically tonight since it's already January 8th, I'm going back one final time. Jesus said he's going to give me specific instructions, practical steps for what he's calling his remnant to do, and I'm going to share every word of it with you. But for now, I need you to process what I've shared. I need you to really sit with it. Ask yourself, am I ready for what's coming? Have I built my life on the rock of genuine surrender or on the sand of cultural Christianity? Do I truly know Jesus or do I just know about him? These aren't rhetorical questions. Your eternal destiny depends on how you answer them. Leave your prayer requests in the comments. Tell me where you're at. Tell me what you need. And subscribe if you haven't already, because what I'm going to share in the final video is going to be the most practical and most urgent message yet. Time is running out. Jesus made that clear, but it's not too late. Not yet. I didn't go back that fourth night. Let me explain what I mean by that, because it's important. After that third encounter, after the storm, after the visions, after seeing both the judgment and the glory, I came down from that mountain a different person. I was physically exhausted, emotionally drained, spiritually overwhelmed. I collapsed into bed at dawn and slept for 12 straight hours. When I woke up on the afternoon of January 8th, I expected to feel that familiar pull, that supernatural compulsion to return to the outcrop. But instead, I felt something different. I felt a deep, settled peace, and with it came a clear instruction. You don't need to come back tonight. I've shown you what you need to see. Now I need you to share it. So instead of hiking back up that mountain, I spent the evening in prayer, processing everything I'd witnessed, asking God for wisdom about how to communicate it. And as I prayed, he began to download specific instructions, practical steps, clear directives, urgent warnings about timing. That's what I want to share with you now. Not another vision, but the practical application of everything Jesus revealed to me over those 3 nights. Because here's the truth. Visions and encounters are powerful, but they're worthless if they don't lead to transformation and action. Let me start by telling you what happened when I went back to that rocky outcrop 3 days later, on January 11th, in the middle of the afternoon. I needed to see it again in daylight. I needed to stand in that place where I'd encountered Jesus and process what had happened there. The hike up was easier in daylight. I could see the trail clearly, could appreciate the beauty of the wilderness that had been hidden in darkness during my nighttime encounters. When I reached the outcrop, I stood at the edge and looked out over the mountains. The view was breathtaking. Peaks stretched endlessly in every direction, their slopes covered in pine and fir, their summits still dusted with snow. The sky was a brilliant blue, and the air was so clear I could see for what must have been 50 miles. It was the same place where I'd encountered Jesus 3 times, but it felt different in daylight, quieter, more ordinary. And yet, as I stood there, I could still feel the weight of what had happened. I could still hear his words echoing in my spirit. Time is running out. I sat down on the same rocks where I'd knelt in the storm, and I pulled out my journal, and I began to write down everything Jesus had instructed me to share with you. Not just the visions, but the practical steps, the specific actions he's calling his remnant to take. Here's what he told me, the 30-minute daily challenge. Jesus was very specific about this. He said, tell them to give me 30 minutes every single day, not for church activities, not for Christian entertainment, not for scrolling through religious social media, but for genuine encounter with me. Here's what those 30 minutes should look like. Minutes 1 to 10, silence and surrender. Start by turning off everything. Your phone, your computer, your TV, your music, everything. Sit in complete silence And in that silence, practice surrender. Tell Jesus out loud, I surrender everything to you, my plans, my dreams, my relationships, my career, my reputation, my comfort, my security, everything. I hold nothing back. This isn't a one-time prayer. This is a daily practice. Because here's what Jesus showed me. We take things back. We surrender something to Him one day, and then we subtly take it back the next day without even realizing it. Daily surrender keeps us in a posture of dependence. Minutes 11:20, Scripture and listening read. Scripture, but not the way most people read it. Don't just read for information or inspiration. Read it as a living conversation with God. Read slowly, read out loud, and after every few verses, stop and ask, Lord, what are you saying to me through this? How does this apply to my life right now? And then, this is crucial, actually wait for an answer. Sit in silence and listen. You'll be amazed at what God will speak to you when you actually give Him space to speak. Jesus specifically told me to tell you this. Stop doing all the talking in your prayer time. I have things to say to you, but you never stop talking long enough to hear them. Minutes 21 to 30. Intercession and warfare. Spend the final 10 minutes in intercession, praying for others, praying for the church, praying for the lost. But also engage in spiritual warfare. Jesus made it clear that what's coming is not just a physical or cultural battle, it's a spiritual one. We're not wrestling against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers. Pray against the spirits of deception that are blinding people to truth. Pray against the spirits of compromise that are weakening the church. Pray for the Holy Spirit to move in power. Pray for revival. Pray for awakening. And here's what Jesus said about this. If my people would spend as much time in genuine intercession as they spend on entertainment, the world would be transformed within a generation. The specific steps. Beyond the daily 30 minutes, Jesus gave me 7 specific steps that He's calling His remnant to take. These aren't suggestions, these aren't optional for mature Christians, these are non-negotiables for anyone who wants to be part of what He's doing. 1. Radical honesty about your spiritual state. Stop lying to yourself about where you really are spiritually. Stop comparing yourself to other Christians and feeling good because you're better than most. Stop hiding behind religious activity and Christian language. Get brutally honest with God and with yourself about the areas where you're still holding back, still compromising, still living for yourself. Jesus said, I can't heal what you won't acknowledge. I can't transform what you keep hidden. Bring everything into the light. 2. Identify and eliminate compromise. This is where it gets uncomfortable. Jesus told me to tell you this. Ask me to show you where you've compromised, and I will, but you have to be willing to act on what I show you. For some of you, it's entertainment. You're consuming media that's filling your mind with values and images that are completely contrary to my kingdom, and then you wonder why you have no spiritual power. For others, it's relationships. You're in relationships, romantic or otherwise, that are pulling you away from me instead of drawing you closer to me, and you know it, but you're not willing to let them go. For others, it's money. You're living for financial security and material comfort instead of living for my kingdom, and your bank account and your calendar prove it. For others, it's reputation. You're more concerned with what people think of you than what I think of you. So you stay silent when you should speak, and you compromise when you should stand firm. Jesus said, I'm going to show each person specifically where they've compromised, and then I'm going to wait and see if they love me enough to eliminate it. 3. Find or create genuine community. You cannot do this alone. You need other believers who are pursuing the same depth of faith, who will challenge you, encourage you, and hold you accountable. But here's the key. It has to be genuine community, not just attending a church service once a week. Jesus said, I'm calling my people back to the kind of community the early church had, where they met in homes, shared their lives, confessed their sins to one another, prayed for one another, and actually did life together, not programs, not events, real community. If your current church provides that, thank God and dive deeper into it. If it doesn't, start it yourself. Invite a few other hungry believers into your home. Be vulnerable, be real. Create the kind of community where people can be honest about their struggles without fear of judgment. 4. Develop a lifestyle of fasting. This one surprised me, but Jesus was emphatic about it. He said, tell them to fast, not once a year, not just when they need something from me, regularly, weekly if possible. Fasting breaks the power of the flesh. It sharpens spiritual sensitivity. It demonstrates to God and to yourself that you value Him more than physical comfort or pleasure. Start with 1 day a week. Fast from food, or if health issues prevent that, Fast from something else. Social media, entertainment, whatever has a hold on you. Use the time you would have spent on that thing to pray, to read scripture, to seek God. Jesus said, "Some things only come through prayer and fasting. The power my remnant is going to need for what's coming requires a lifestyle of fasting." 5. Practice immediate obedience. This is huge. Jesus said, "I'm going to start speaking to my people more clearly and more frequently than I have in years, but I need them to develop a habit of immediate obedience. When I tell you to do something, do it immediately. Don't analyze it. Don't rationalize it. Don't wait for confirmation. Just obey." He gave me a specific example. If I tell you to reach out to someone, do it immediately. If I tell you to give something away, do it immediately. If I tell you to speak truth in a situation, do it immediately. Every time you delay obedience, you weaken your ability to hear my voice clearly. 6. Prepare for persecution. Jesus was very clear about this. Tell them to prepare mentally, emotionally, and spiritually for persecution. It's coming, not might be coming, is coming, and those who aren't prepared will fall away when it arrives. How do you prepare? By deciding now what you're willing to lose for Jesus, by counting the cost before the bill comes due, by settling in your heart that following Jesus is worth more than your job, your reputation, your relationships, your comfort, even your life. Jesus said, "Those who try to save their life will lose it, but those who lose their life for my sake will find it." This isn't metaphorical, this is literal, and it's coming sooner than most people think. 7. Become a voice, not an echo. Finally, Jesus said this, "I'm raising up voices who will speak my truth without compromise, without apology, without fear of man. Not echoes who just repeat what popular preachers say, but voices who hear directly from me and speak what I tell them to speak." This doesn't mean everyone is called to be a preacher or a teacher, but it does mean that every believer should be able to articulate truth clearly and defend it boldly. It means you need to know Scripture well enough to use it accurately. It means you need to be so grounded in truth that you can't be swayed by popular opinion or cultural pressure. Jesus said, "In the days ahead, my people are going to need to know what they believe and why they believe it. Shallow faith won't survive what's coming." The urgent deadline. Now here's where this gets really specific, and I need you to pay close attention. Jesus gave me a specific time frame. He said, "Tell them they have until February 7th, 2026, 30 days from when you receive this message, to respond." Not that I'm going to stop calling after that date, but that's the window of grace I'm giving for this specific call to my remnant. After that date, the shaking intensifies, the separation accelerates, and it becomes much harder to respond because the cost becomes much higher. I know some of you are going to hear that and think I'm being manipulative, creating false urgency, but I'm just telling you what I was told. I didn't make up that date. I didn't choose it for dramatic effect. Jesus gave it to me specifically, and he told me to share it specifically. Here's what he said. There are windows of grace, seasons when I'm calling people with particular intensity, when the door is wide open, when responding is easier. But those windows don't stay open forever. And we're in one of those windows right now. Tell them not to waste it. So I'm telling you, you have until February 7th, 2026 to make a decision, not to become perfect, not to have everything figured out, but to make a genuine, wholehearted commitment to pursue real faith, to eliminate compromise, to follow Jesus no matter what it costs. What happens if you respond? Jesus showed me what will happen to those who respond to this call. And I need you to hear both the cost and the reward because they're both real. The cost, you will lose things. You may lose relationships with people who don't understand your newfound intensity about faith. You may lose opportunities because you're no longer willing to compromise. You may lose comfort and security as God calls you to trust Him in new ways. You may face mockery, misunderstanding, even persecution. But the reward, you will gain Jesus, not just knowledge about Him, but intimate relationship with Him. You will experience His presence in ways that will ruin you for shallow Christianity. You will move in spiritual power, healing, deliverance, prophetic insight that you never thought possible. You will be part of the greatest move of God's Spirit the world has ever seen. You will have the privilege of leading others to genuine faith. And when you stand before Him on that final day, you will hear the words every soul longs to hear. "Well done, good and faithful servant." Jesus said, "Tell them that I'm worth it. Tell them that everything they lose for my sake, they'll find was worthless compared to what they gain. Tell them that the cost is real, but the reward is infinitely greater." What happens if you don't respond? I also need to tell you what Jesus showed me about those who ignore this call, who continue in comfortable, compromised Christianity. The shaking that's coming will expose the foundation you've built on. If you've built on the rock of genuine surrender and obedience, you'll stand. But if you've built on the sand of cultural Christianity, going through the motions, believing the right things intellectually but never truly surrendering, you'll fall. And Jesus said, "Great will be the fall." He showed me people who had been in church their whole lives, who knew all the right answers, who had Christian friends and Christian bumper stickers and Christian social media posts, standing before him on Judgment Day and hearing those devastating words, "I never knew you. Depart from me." And the shock on their faces, the protest, "But Lord, I went to church, I believed in you, I prayed prayers, I did good things." And Jesus responding, you knew about me, but you never knew me. You used my name, but you never surrendered to my lordship. You wanted my benefits without my presence, my promises without my character, my heaven without my holiness. I'm not trying to scare you, I'm trying to save you because Jesus loves you too much to let you continue in deception. This message, this call is mercy, painful mercy, but mercy nonetheless. What I need you to do right now. Here's what I'm asking you to do right now before you close this video. First, leave a comment telling me your decision. Not a vague, "I want to follow Jesus" comment, but a specific commitment. Tell me which of the 7 steps you're going to start with. Tell me what compromise you're going to eliminate. Tell me what you're willing to lose for Jesus. Make it public, make it real. Second, subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. I'm going to continue sharing what God is speaking to me, and you need to be part of this community of believers who are pursuing genuine faith. Third, share this video. I know that sounds self-promotional, but it's not about me. There are people in your life, people in your family, your church, your friend group, who need to hear this message. They're settling for shallow faith and they don't even know it. Share this video with them. Tag them in the comments. Send them the link. You might save their eternal destiny. Fourth, start the 30-minute daily challenge tomorrow morning. Not next week. Not when life calms down. Tomorrow. Set your alarm 30 minutes earlier if you have to. Make it non-negotiable. And watch what God does when you give him consistent, focused time every single day. Fifth, ask God to show you specifically where you've compromised and then act on what he shows you. Don't wait. Don't make excuses. Don't rationalize. Just obey. The honest question I need you to answer, here's what I want to know, and I need you to be completely honest in the comments. Where are you really at spiritually? Not where you wish you were, not where you think you should be, not where you pretend to be on Sunday mornings. Where are you really at? Are you on fire for Jesus, or are you just going through the motions? Are you surrendered completely, or are you holding areas back? Are you willing to lose everything for him, or are you trying to have Jesus and the world? Do you truly know him, or do you just know about him? Answer honestly, because here's what Jesus showed me. He already knows the answer. He's just waiting to see if you're willing to be honest about it. And that honesty, that vulnerability, is the first step toward genuine transformation. The final warning and the final hope. Let me close with this. As I sat on that rocky outcrop on January 11th, looking out over those mountains in the afternoon sunlight, I thought about everything Jesus had shown me. The tears, the grief, the judgment, the glory, the separation, the remnant. And I realized something. This message isn't going to be popular. It's going to offend people. It's going to make people uncomfortable. Some will call me extreme. Others will say I'm fear-mongering. Some will unsubscribe. Some will leave angry comments, but I don't care, because I've seen what I've seen. I've heard what I've heard, and I've been commanded to share it, regardless of the cost. So here's my final warning. Time is running out. The comfortable cultural Christianity that's become so popular is ending. What's coming will separate the true from the false, the genuine from the counterfeit, those who truly know Jesus from those who only know about him. You have until February 7th, 2026 to respond to this specific call. That's 30 days from when Jesus gave me this message. 30 days to make a decision. 30 days to get real with God. 30 days to eliminate compromise and pursue genuine faith. Don't waste it. But here's my final hope. It's not too late. Not yet. Jesus is still calling. The door is still open. The invitation is still extended. He's offering you the real thing. Genuine faith, intimate relationship, spiritual power, eternal reward. All he's asking is that you surrender everything and follow him without reservation, and he's worth it. I promise you, he's worth it. Everything you lose for his sake you'll find was worthless compared to what you gain. As I stood on that outcrop looking out over those mountains, I thought about how they've stood there for thousands of years, unmoved by storms, unchanged by seasons, solid, permanent, real. That's what Jesus is offering you, a foundation that cannot be shaken, a faith that cannot be moved, a relationship that will last for eternity. The question is, will you respond? Leave your answer in the comments. Tell me your decision. Tell me your commitment. Tell me what you're willing to lose for Jesus, and then start living it. Not tomorrow, not next week, today, because time is running out. But it's not too late, not yet.